That's right, we're looking at Undertale, the hit indie game that took the internet by storm when it first released 6 years ago and... Huh? Yeah? What do you mean 2015 was nearly a decade ago as of this video's making? I'm not old! I'm not old! We of course cannot talk about Undertale without talking about its creator, Toby Fox, and boy oh boy, where do I even begin with him? Well, I should make mention of the Earthbound Halloween hack that he made back in 2008. I would say what really sprung him into a wider view of the internet was his collaborations and contributions to the Homestuck webcomic, and if you don't know anything about Homestuck, well, please for the love of God, tell me what rock you're under so I can join you, please! Sometime in 2013, Toby Fox began work on an independent video game of his own called Undertale, with the idea being that every enemy in the game could be killed or spared, which would drastically alter the outcome of the game's story. Definitely an interesting enough premise that the crowdfunding campaign that launched for the game raised over $51,000, and keep in mind that Toby Fox was only asking for $5,000. Undertale was released in September 15th, 2015, and quickly became a smash hit indie title, and when I say that, I mean people would not shut up about it. To bring up Homestuck once again, it was known for having one of the most toxic fan bases on the internet, and when Toby Fox announced Undertale, a large part of that fandom also went to the Undertale fandom. Legitimately, from the start, Undertale had one of the worst fandoms associated with it that kinda caused some people to not want to play it at all. As for me, well, I remember Jacksepticeye's playthrough of the game, and I so badly wanted to play it for myself, but due to being a high schooler with no job, I didn't have a PC to play it on, and thus Undertale eventually fell into my dreaded waiting list of games. Until the game was ported to the Nintendo Switch in 2018. Yeah, this is how I experienced Undertale for the first time, and what was really cool is that all of the console versions of the game had exclusive content. As a result, I'll be playing this on my Switch since it had an exclusive boss fight, and the Joy-Con's D buttons come in really useful for this game over a traditional D-pad. While, yes, this game is nearly a decade old, in case there is anyone watching who has somehow avoided this game up until now, then I'll put down a timestamp to skip to if you don't want to be spoiled on the story. Now with all of that preamble out of the way, let's talk about Undertale. A long time ago, the surface was ruled by humans and monsters until one day a war broke out between the two, with the humans coming out victorious and sealing the monsters away underground, with the only way in being near the peak of a mountain. Flash forward to modern day, and an unnamed child falls into the underground. Now we can name this child whatever we want, as long as it falls within the 6 character limit. Well, okay, almost anything, but still. Undertale has several routes that we can take, but no matter what, the end goal is always the same. We are the 7th human to fall into the underground, and we quickly learn that we now have a massive target on our back. This is apparent as this seemingly friendly flower called Flowey tries to kill us until the Keeper of the Ruins, Toriel, rescues us. Toriel is a sweetheart of a goat mom, which makes it feel all the more heartbreaking when we tell her that we want to leave the underground, as she tells us that every child who has left the ruins has been killed by Asgore, the king of monsters. Eventually, we convince Toriel that we can take care of ourselves, and we leave the ruins and enter the snow-covered fields of Snowdin, where we meet, shit, guys, look, it's the funny skeleton boys! Welcome to the underground!
Give us your balls!
Papyrus is an absolute goober of a character who everyone seemingly agrees sounds like Skeletor from He-Man. Sans is in Smash, was voted Tumblr Sexy Man, and is the focal point of several fetish drawings that I will suggest you do not look into. After befriending Sans and Papyrus and even going on a date with the latter, we progress to Waterfall, where we have several life or death encounters with Undyne, captain of the Royal Guard. Later, we encounter the royal scientist Alphys, who is a total tech weeb who even went and made a killer robot. A scientist who made a mobile death machine and loves anime. Now, where have I heard that one before? Those are just the major characters. I haven't even mentioned the minor characters who have just as enough personality packed into them, like Napstablook, who I honestly just vibe with. There's this monster kid who idolizes Undyne, nearly to the point where they kinda remind me of the adoring fan from Oblivion. However, they, A, aren't idolizing me, and B, don't follow me around saying, buy a Zura, buy a Zura, buy a Zura, buy a Zura! There's also Muffet, who was actually designed by one of the crowdfunding backers. She is cute as shit, however, I am honestly deathly scared of spiders, so I shall not be sticking my dick in that. As we near the end of the game, we learn of the tragedy of Azrael Dreamer. I so badly wanted to say Darth Plagueis the Wise. He was the son of Toriel and Asgore, who befriended the first fallen human, which led to said human being adopted by the Dreamers and raised as Azrael's sibling. However, one day, the human fell ill and unfortunately passed away. Upset, Azrael absorbed the human soul and crossed through the barrier carrying his sibling's body with the intent of returning their body to their home, only for him to be brutally beaten by the humans who mistakenly believed that Azrael killed the child. Not long after his return to the underground, he too passed away. The loss of both of his children greatly enraged Asgore as he declared that any human who falls down shall be killed and their souls brought to him. Toriel was greatly disgusted by this and left him soon after, hence why she now presides over the ruins. Asgore currently possesses 6 human souls and only needs one more to shatter the barrier and wage war on humanity. Now, we're told through most of the game that a human can cross the barrier freely, but before we head to Asgore, Alphys informs us that we actually need not only a human soul, but the soul of a monster. In order to leave, we have to kill Asgore. At the end of a playthrough, you will have one final encounter with Sans, who judges us based on our actions throughout the whole game, and he does have a lot of things he can say here. However, since we didn't harm a single soul, he's chill with us and wishes us luck with Asgore. The big guy himself is honestly pretty much a gentle giant. He clearly doesn't want to fight us, but knows he has to, since all of the hopes and dreams of all monster kind rests on his shoulders. He even shatters our mercy button so that we can't back out of the fight. Eventually, Asgore falls to his knees, with us getting the option to either kill or spare him, but no matter what you do, Flowey swoops in, kills Asgore, and steals the 6 human souls. Flowey transforms into Photoshop Flowey, or Omega Flowey if that's what you want to call this form of his. This fight is really intense as he not only fucking save scums you into running into his attacks, but he throws everything he has at you in an attempt to kill you repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again. After calling out to the 6 human souls, they break free from Flowey's control and help us in defeating him. Flowey is now powerless, and we have the option to spare or kill him. Of course, we spare him, which deeply confuses him to the point of running away, where we can finally leave the underground, ending Undertale. Neutral route. Upon loading back in, Flowey will inform us of a better ending that can be achieved by becoming better friends with Alphys. It's within the True Lab that we can find several notes from Alphys documenting her experience with determination, as well as hinting at the origins of Flowey. When we return to Asgore, just before the fight starts, all of our friends show up to stop the fight from happening, where we nearly have fish dinosaur lesbian kissing. That is something. Suddenly Flowey interrupts, and along with the 6 human souls, he absorbs the soul of every monster in the underground, where it's revealed that Flowey is a monster-made reincarnation of Azrael Dreamer. As we progress in the fight, we can save the souls of our friends before reaching out to Azrael himself, who eventually folds and reverts to his child form. It's revealed that the name that we chose at the start of the game actually belongs to the first fallen human and not the character we've been playing as. No, this human child is named Frisk, and if you've paid close attention, you might have noticed that nearly no one in the game actually referred to you by name. With the power of the 6 human souls and the souls of all of the monsters, Azrael destroys the barrier before apologizing to us and leaving, as it's not long before he turns back into Flowey. As Frisk awakens, they're surrounded by their friends who all together leave the underground and see the glorious sunlight for the first time in ages. As everyone runs off, Frisk can decide to head to their old family or stay with Toriel, and honestly, I think we found a better family than whoever we were with prior to the start of this game. I mean, seriously, who lets their child play on a mountain known for having people disappear on it unsupervised? Monsters and humans now live in harmony, and it's all thanks to one small child, ending Undertale's pacifist route. You know, it's funny. This is my 3rd time replaying this game, and this story still gets me to feel stuff, which I believe says a lot about the quality of the writing on display here. There were several points during recording where I chuckled or felt a bit emotional. It's why that, even though this game is nearly a decade old, I feel that it still warrants a spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't played it. Now, the neutral ending is rather easy to achieve, either by not having beaten the game at all on the current save, or just by killing some monsters. The pacifist route is obviously the most fulfilling and I would say the true ending, but what if we went to the extreme? What if instead of saving everyone, we channel our inner Doomslayer and rip and tear until all is done? The genocide route starts off similar to any other run, except we kill everything. And once you do eradicate every monster in a given area, this drastically changes the mood of the game, with some enemies not even showing up to fight you, like Napstablook, who just nopes the fuck on out of there. Upon killing Toriel and leaving the ruins, that's when things get interesting. We pretty much ignore all of Papyrus's puzzles and, rather upsettingly, kill him, which royally pisses Sans off. We then attempt to kill Monster Kid, but Undyne shows up and saves them, before transforming into the second hardest boss in the game, Undyne the Undying, where the game makes damn clear that she is the true hero in this scenario. After clearing the rest of the underground and one-shotting Metaton Neo, we come face to face with Sans, who walls us into repeat try after repeat try, but eventually he too falls. We make our move on Asgore, where Flowey yet again kills him and begs us to spare his life, cowering in fear of us, but we then brutally murder him. This then awakens the first fallen human, who has the name you chose at the start of the game, where they then use their power to erase the world, ending Undertale's genocide route. Again, this is my third time replaying this game, and after re-experiencing the story, I am glad to say that it still holds up damn well. To further elaborate on what I was talking about earlier, there were several points where I chuckled because I still find a lot of these jokes and gags enjoyable. Same goes for the more emotional or heartstring tugging moments, nothing to make me shed a tear, but enough to where I felt something in the shattered remains of my soul. Replaying all of these routes was so much fun. Except for one, but I'll save that for later. While the writing and quality of the story is fantastic, what's the point of a video game if it isn't fun? And since this is a video game, let's move on to talking about the gameplay of this game. The overworld is presented in a top-down view, just like any other RPG from the 8-bit or 16-bit era like Final Fantasy or Earthbound. There are monsters to talk to, puzzles to solve, things to find, all the stuff you'd expect from an RPG. When walking around, you might get a random encounter and engage in a fight with up to 3 monsters. You have 4 options to choose from. First is the fight option, which brings up the attack screen, which is timing based. The closer you are to the center of the graphic, the more damage you'll do. Next up is the act menu, where you're given many options in an attempt to pacify the monster. These can be like little puzzles in the fights themselves, since you need to come up with the best course of action to get the monster to like you enough to where you can spare them, which is done through the mercy menu. This is what made Undertale feel so unique when it first came out back in 2015. The fact that you can play through the whole game without killing a single monster, which is encouraged since not only does that lead to you getting the most out of the characters, but the overarching story as well. The last option you can pick in battles is the items option. This does exactly what you think it would do. It brings up your inventory so you can either quick swap equipment or eat something to restore your HP. Monsters can of course attack you as well, but the way they do it gives you a lot of control over how much damage you take. When a monster attacks, your soul, represented by this red heart, will be placed in this box where you have to then dodge the monster's attacks, and these have some serious variety to them. It's honestly very inspiring to witness just the sheer display of creativity when it comes to how monsters can attack you. These can range from a rain of fire that you have to weave through, to avoiding their attacks and having their bullets hit them instead. God, I haven't even mentioned the bosses, which get this treatment the best as they can change the color of your soul, which changes the playstyle. Blue will cause you to be affected by gravity, so you have to jump over obstacles. Green, you're locked into place and you have this shield that you need to maneuver to block attacks. Or yellow, where you fire these energy shots that can break the enemy's attack. Undertale is often classified as a bullet hell game due to how this system works, which it absolutely is. It also fortunately doesn't carry that stigma around bullet hells like Touhou Project, for example, where it's extremely fucking hard. Undertale has its hard moments, by God, it does, but I feel like this is a bullet hell game that anyone can actually pick up and play. Depending on your actions in battle, Undertale will take you down one of 3 routes: the neutral route, the pacifist route, and the genocide route. There are variations to these routes, like depending on who you kill in a neutral run, that'll change some stuff at the end, or the false pacifist ending, but for the most part they can be boiled down to these three. Now, if you've never played this game before, then I would recommend doing a plain neutral playthrough for your first time, as it is a great way to get a feel for the game. Then do a pacifist playthrough, and if you really feel like it, do genocide. The pacifist route is the most fulfilling out of the three for obvious reasons, while genocide is the near complete opposite, and I mean that in more ways than just the story. When you're doing a genocide playthrough, there's a point in the game where Sans will try to scare you off it by saying that if you keep going down this road, you're gonna have a bad time, and I think he means that in more ways than the super hard final boss fight at the end of the genocide route. In order to do a genocide run, you have to kill everything. Literally everything you find must die, and since this is an RPG, that means grinding, and holy fuck, grinding sucks in this game. I mean, grinding sucks to do in general, but here it's worse than any other game I've ever played, not only because it's mandatory for one of the endings, but because the more monsters you kill within an area, the encounter rates go down, meaning you'll just be standing there doing this for fucking minutes on end. You know what I was doing here? I was watching videos on YouTube because I was bored out of my mind. It sucks even harder when you realize that two of the best, and hardest, fights in the game are locked behind this massive grind, and to top it off completely, genocide locks you out of doing the true pacifist ending. Like, what the fuck? I know Undertale has this whole meta-narrative thing going on, which is pretty cool, but locking me out of an ending because I did the bad guy one once is stupid. The only way you can ever get true pacifist again is to delete the game's save data from your system manager on whatever device you're playing it on, which again, pretty fucking dumb. As much as the whole genocide thing pisses me off, I do still enjoy this game. After all, it's not like getting all three endings is required, so you can just do a playthrough of neutral and then a playthrough of pacifist and tell genocide to fuck off. I suppose that there is at least some value in doing at least one playthrough of genocide, not only to say that you experienced it, but also those two bosses that I mentioned. In terms of the gameplay, I would say that this gets a thumbs up from me. The fact that it's an RPG cross bullet hell kind of game is really fun, and like I said, it's not super hard most of the time, so I imagine most people can just pick the game up and have a good time. The music is yet another iconic piece of this pie that I would truly regret not talking about. The game's soundtrack is available on pretty much all streaming platforms, so whichever is your flavor of choice, you can probably find the soundtrack on there. I highly recommend you do so because I would honestly say that there isn't a single track in this game that is below a B+. A lot of this game's music takes inspiration from a boatload of sources. Earthbound, Mega Man X, Phoenix Wright, you name it. And what I deeply appreciate is its usage of musical motifs that are assigned to places and characters. A good example I can think of is Napstablook's battle theme, which is used as a sort of mini-boss theme throughout the game. It's used for him, as well as the Mad Dummy, the Mad Mew Mew doll in the Switch port, as well as for Muffet. One of the most recognizable songs in this game, Megalovania, is in pretty much everything Toby Fox has worked on, and for good reason. It slaps. Hardcore. It was in his Earthbound Halloween hack, Homestuck, it even made its way into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. As for my personal favorite song in the game, well, that honor goes to Asgore's theme, Bergen Truckin'. I hope that's how it's pronounced. You can keep your hopes and dreams in Battle of a True Hero. For me, Asgore's theme perfectly encapsulates both his and the player's feelings during this fight. Top it off with Toriel's theme, Heartache, gets its leitmotifs reused here, and this song is just beauty to my ears. There are some minor topics that I do want to touch on before we get to the conclusion of this video, so allow me to go into this more disjointed flow for this segment. I really adore the variety of monsters in this game. Every area has its own unique cast to pull from, which makes these places feel more like habitats for these monsters. Not to mention, some of these can get pretty out there, like the Temmies, or, the fucking Tsundere plane. That still baffles me to this day, and the way that you get it to where it can be spared is by pretty much grazing the plane when it attacks you, which just makes it blush. Good lord. In terms of the sprite quality, it's all pretty good. It's nothing mind-blowing, like I'm not sitting here going, wow, those are some nicely put together pixels, but what is here does give your eyes enough to be satisfied with. Although, what the fuck is with some of these, like Onion Sun? I feel like I could make his sprite in 30 seconds in MS Paint. The last thing I'll touch on is actually a bit of trivia about Undertale. Did you know that this game was coded like shit? Well, I didn't. But according to people who are much more familiar with game development like Thor from Pirate Software, Undertale is full of redundancies and unnecessary checks that would make any senior game dev cry. But you never hear anyone talk about it with this game, as opposed to something like Yandere Simulator, for example, where that's just one of the main talking points people have against it. The reason people ignore the crappy coding of Undertale is because the game still at least runs fine, but it is also very enjoyable, so people have no reason to look into the game's code and point out its many flaws, which shows that you can be ass at coding and still make something people have a lot of fun with, and I don't think that necessarily just applies to game development, but any creative art form. At the end of the day, Undertale is a staple of the indie game scene and has served as a massive inspiration to many aspiring game developers all over the world. Not only do I think you should give this game a try, but so do many others. They just might be more loud with it than I am. The story is incredible, the music is divine, and the gameplay is so much fun, which makes the overall package feel so rewarding to complete. I absolutely intend on replaying this game sometime later down the road, maybe in a couple years, even after being burned so badly by Sans that I think I may have climaxed slightly when I finally beat him. As for Mr. Fox, well, after Undertale, he would make a successor game called Deltarune, which uses the same general gameplay style, but is set in a different world from Undertale despite reusing the characters. I'll probably talk about Deltarune when the first paid chapters release next year, chapters 3 and 4. Until that time comes, however, have a great day or night. Peace.